We have some major new polling in politics this morning.
Well, some crazy new polling.
Yeah.
I mean, they're 10 points apart, the two polls that are out. So, yeah, let's talk about it.
The new polling from NBC News shows that President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are deadlocked in a hypothetical 2024 election matchup. According to the latest survey, both Biden and Trump earned 46% of support in a potential rematch of the 2020 contest. 74% of registered voters say they have major or moderate concerns about the current president's age and mental fitness. For Trump, who is just 3 years younger than Biden, that number is 27 points lower at 47%. 62% of voters say they have concerns about Trump's legal problems, but 60% say they have concerns about Biden's awareness or involvement in his son's business dealings, which is the subject of an impeachment inquiry in the Republican-led House. Then the other new poll, this one from ABC News and The Washington Post, has Trump leading Biden by 9 points in a 2024 election matchup. In this survey, the former president leads the current one, 51% to 42% among all adults. The Washington Post noted that this poll is likely an outlier compared to ones taken by other groups, but it is consistent with an ABC News Washington Post poll of the same question from earlier this year. In this latest poll, 74% say Biden is too old for a second term, versus 50% who say Trump is too old for a second term. And Biden also faces negative ratings on other key issues as well. Just 37% approve of his overall job performance, compared to 56% who disapprove. Biden's approval is even lower at 30% for his handling of the economy, and at 20% for his handling of the situation at the southern border. Let's bring in White House reporter for The Washington Post, Tyler Pager, and NBC News presidential historian, Michael Beschloss. Good to have you both this morning.
So I'm looking at these polls, Mika. Let's just talk here among ourselves for a second before we bring the guests in. We've talked about this a good bit through the years about Joe Biden. And I got sent, I think it was yesterday evening, Mark Halpern's newsletter. Where there are different takes on it. I want to read you one take.
Okay.
And it's pretty consistent from one of his experts. And think about this. I can show you one expert after another mocking and ridiculing Joe Biden and the Democrats for their strategy leading up to the 2022 midterm. The mockery for him talking about democracy and abortion was over the top. You should have heard them. And I'm not going to say people's names here, the so-called truth tellers. They made fools of themselves, mocking Democrats and Joe Biden. And as always, there was no blowback for underestimating Biden. They were proven wrong. The irony of people attacking the press for not telling the truth and then willfully being blind to all of their terrible predictions in 2020 and 2022 is pretty thick. People said Biden was dead in the water after Iowa, after New Hampshire, after Nevada. The open mockery was over the top. The open mockery throughout the 2020 campaign was over the top. The tales of doom on election night, over the top. The tales of doom over the next 2 years, over the top. But no one has ever held accountable for underestimating Joe Biden these past few years. Nobody. And the people that look and I must say that the people that you look to as truth tellers are at the top of that list. They were wrong about Biden then. They are wrong about Biden now. They are wrong about Biden far more than they are right. From Trumpers to progressives to people who have made a lot of money in podcasts and newsletters being, quote, truth tellers, they have been dead wrong about Biden at the polls and dead wrong about Biden hammering out bipartisan legislation for 3 straight years, but no accountability because they are truth tellers. And Mika, it's true. I mean, remember after Iowa?
Yeah.
He was dead. Remember after New Hampshire? Mocked, ridiculed, dead. After Nevada, there's no way he can come back. He went to South Carolina, wins the nomination. We heard the same thing. He's too old. He's living in his basement. He stopped up. He can't get out of his basement. He's going to lose. And then election night, oh, well, Trump's going to win this state and that state. Now things wrong. and then progressives as well as Trumpers wrong for 2 years about bipartisan. I'm just telling you, maybe these polls are right. Well, they're not right. It's not 9 points. Morning Joe betting syndicate will take all of your bets right now. Like if you want to take the +9 on Joe Biden, yeah, no, Biden's not going to lose by 9 points. This is a close race, and there are warning signs there. I will say, though, I'm a little tired of it. I'm a little tired of 3 years hearing about how Joe Biden's going to get crushed. He's going to get crushed in 2020. He and the Democrats are going to get crushed in 2022. There's going to be a red wave. There's no way he can pass bipartisan legislation. He passes more than anybody this century. And it just keeps going on and on.
There's a bunch of things at play. And to jump on what you're saying, if these truth tellers would say, you know, it doesn't look good, these polls don't look good, but we've been here before. Let me give some context historically. Look what happened the last time. He was underestimated. And also in terms of his age, look at what President Biden is doing. Go through his schedule. Look at the things that he has accomplished. List them. And then talk about a man his age and what he is able to do at his age, since age is relative. And as for Donald Trump, I think that there has got to be a point where if you're an organization that works around debating the issues and following the truth, I don't know why there are extensive interviews with this man when he cannot even admit he lost the election. Like, that would be the end of any interview anywhere, or it should be. And instead, he pontificates and rolls over people with lies, and people continue to put him on as if he is a truth teller.
You look at Jonathan.
And he's not a truth teller.
You look at Jonathan Swan and the way that he did it. Savannah Guthrie, there are other people who do it. But
at
again,
this point,
the
we
lying
know.
And it continues on.